If you want to build an application, how could you find the right idea? Coming up with the idea of an application is something that for a lot of people is a tough process. But for me, it's not, because I have a step-by-step formula for it. In our company, we come up with over 100 ideas every single week. We have a directory of 1,000+ ideas that we would want to go out and build. And we've already built over 100 applications that are making more than $120 million every single year. So in this video, I'll show you the exact process I have on coming up with the ideas. Let's get started. The first step is choosing the market. If I want to build an application, I don't want to build it in a market where it's dying. I want to build it somewhere that is growing year by year. The ideal scenario would be if you have an already existing audience that you know would buy something from you. But if that's not the case, then you need to think of markets that will be easy for you to cold outreach to. So as a first step, I need to go to places that show me what applications are trending and growing and what industries in general are on the uprise. So as a first step, I actually go out and see what types of applications are people using for the most part and what are the big trends. So there's multiple applications for this, but the one I usually use is called Sensor Tower, which literally shows you the apps that are on the rise. So how I would do it is going into Sensor Tower or Trust MRR to exactly see what applications are making the most amount of money. Right now, if I want to go to Sensor Tower in the lifestyle niche, for example, I see that Tinder, Hinge, and anything dating related is the top revenue generating type of application. So in the whole category of lifestyle, dating apps are making the most amount of money in any category in general. In fact, dating apps are one of the most revenue generating type of applications. Another place I'd like to look at is Trust MRR, but it shows me what type of revenue applications are having and what is the traction and growth like. Based off of that, I think dating as a niche is a very interesting niche to tackle because it's a very emotional subject. We know that if we want to sell something to people, a very important note is if you want to sell something to people, usually it needs to be around health or their wealth or sex. When I want to come up with ideas, I like to come up with more sensitive subjects for people because that would be something that they're more prone into paying for. So if I build something around the dating niche that affects people's dating lives, that is one of the most important pieces of any human's life. So naturally, if we build a product around the dating niche, inherently it would have more value than, for example, if I were to make a product around the hobby. And now that we talked about the dating niche, next up is the general trend of the industry. I like to use Google Trends to see how the general trend of the industry is. In this case, it's growing year by year. We already know people are more and more into online dating. But the next question becomes, what problem we could solve for these people? So as the next step, I need to find a specific problem within that niche to solve for people. And for that, I actually started calling some of my friends to see what problems they keep facing when they're using these types of applications. And one thing they all mentioned is the percentage of males getting accepted by females is a lot less than females getting accepted by males. And I know one of the most important factors of somebody selecting you is going to be how you position your profile. Because that's going to be the first impression people have of you through the application. So I now have kind of an idea on what problem to solve. If I could improve people's profile pictures, it would be a massive help. Then I actually go out and search it up. Then I actually go on Reddit and search out relevant discussion points that people have had around that specific problem. If I see people already having that problem and looking for answers, and there's a lot of people who are commenting, who are engaging with those types of posts, it could be a very strong signal for me to know there's a big problem that people would actually pay for solving. So I went out to Tinder and I looked at one specific problem that we could solve for people. The profile picture right now is something that either you have to manually select the ones you want included in your profile or ask AI to select them for you. Then I went a little bit deeper because I realized one of my friends mentioned, and I actually remembered one of my friends told me there are experts that could analyze your photos and tell you which ones to use on your dating profile to get accepted more. And as a next step, after looking at the general market, finding a specific problem and seeing if people are actually having that problem, the next step for me is to validate if people would pay for it. And this would be the perfect scenario. If people are paying specialists to analyze their photos, that means there's a room for this problem for us to solve. And as the next step, I go on Google to search it up and see what are people selling or coming up with around this topic. And when I was scrolling, I actually saw something interesting. There was this Fiverr gig that it went up and opened up. And I saw somebody's actually charging people to choose between their photos. I also realized Tinder released a feature that AI would select your pictures for you. So now I know A, this is a growing and big industry. B, people are having this problem. C, people are actually getting paid to solve this problem for them. So the last step would be for me to understand how I should position this product. I actually have a framework that if you comment down below, I can share it with you, that helps me turn these generic problems into actual products. The general subject is going into places like TrustMRR and Sensor Tower and seeing similar products. For example, in this case, we literally have a Tinder profile.ai that is making money right now to use as a reference point for us to see how we need to package this product. And where my framework led me, based off of the trends I'm seeing, based off of a little bit of input and experience I have on my end, is having 100 women vote for the images that you should pick to put as your profile picture. If a product existed where you could dump your photos in, an actual woman voted on the pictures and you knew for a fact which one women like the most, that is going to be the perfect way for you to determine which photo you should use. So the next step is going to be building a landing page that pretends this application exists and actually taking it out to people who would potentially pay for it. In the next video, I'll show you how I build landing pages that pretend an application exists and can convince people to pay for it before you build anything. So to wrap up, A, you need to pick a market that is growing. B, you need to have an audience there. If you don't, you need to look and see if there's an already existing audience there. C, you need to see what type of other applications are in the market and what problem people are facing through the communities. D, you need to pick a problem to solve and see if people are actually paying for it in adjacent formats to solve that problem. E, you need to see if somebody's already solved that problem and how they packaged it so you could improve it by 20%. And as the next step, you need to start validating the idea, and I'll show you the exact framework in my next video. Thank you for watching.